AI actually makes it possible for every teacher to be a literacy teacher, because with a few simple prompts and some basic understanding, we can create those evidence-backed basics, not in hours, but in minutes, and it will benefit our learners.
You're listening to Around the School Table, hosted by me, Steve Davis, and proudly powered by Xuno Suite. We'll be bringing together the many voices shaping primary and secondary education across Australia, from principals and teachers to education thought leaders and system innovators. Whether you're in the classroom, the staff room, or the boardroom, this is your podcast to be informed, inspired, and connected. Today on Around the School Table, we're joined by Paul Matthews, author of Wise AI, and an education consultant who brings something unusual to the AI conversation, a deep background in humanities. I'm talking anthropology, sociology, theology as well, from his time as head of humanities at Calvin Christian School. Now, Paul didn't start in technology. He shifted from humanities to AI, and that human-centered lens now shapes how he talks about wisdom, judgement, and the role of teachers in an age where answers can appear instantly. His book, co-written with Daniel C., argues that AI is incredibly powerful, but only for the right people, and only when we protect and strengthen our own organic intelligence rather than outsource it. So in the conversation we're about to have, I think Paul will be helping fellow teachers who are listening to see how to use AI for productivity without panicking or becoming naive, how to help students face uncertainty with curiosity rather than anxiety, and where the line lies between saving time on repetitive tasks and keeping the creative, deeply human parts of teaching alive. Paul, welcome to Around the School Table.
Well, Steve, what a treat it is to be with you. And may I say, you have got a fantastic voice. I've listened to the podcast, but it's even better when I'm having the discussion with you right now.
I hope my wife and daughters hear that. Let's start with your background, because as I mentioned, it's not in technology, it was in humanities. How do you make a shift from humanities into AI and tech? And how do you think that human-centered background has shaped the way you've approached AI today?
Well, I'm really thankful, Steve, to have started in the humanities. You talked about it, anthropology, sociology. We're talking psychology and theology as well, because technology, in many ways, it's like an iceberg. On the surface of the water, you might see an iPhone or an iPad or a laptop. But underneath the water level, what are we actually looking at? We're looking at, well, what does it mean to live a good life? How should I use the technology I find around myself? How should I treat other people with their technology? What is it doing to me as I use it? Not just what does it do for me, but what does it do to me? All these sorts of questions are not necessarily technological questions. So I'm really thankful for my background in the humanities. And of course, I'm still on the coalface. I still teach. I still am the head of department at Calvin Christian School. And it's something I'm grateful for because it keeps me grounded in the real conversations, the real pressures, and it keeps me thinking through these big ideas on a really regular basis.
Because it can get very scary. I work in that space in my day job in the marketing and communication realm. And my approach is to consider AI as the horse we ride, but we are guiding it to where we want to go at the pace we want to go, as one analogy. But I hear some of the pundits talking, and if you let them go with too much rein, they talk about questioning whether we actually need the human species after a while and whether AI is just going to run this planet better by itself. That becomes scary.
Oh, absolutely. And what it is often, it's bad anthropological, philosophical ideas smuggled in through the lens of technology. That's what often happens. People who call themselves a futurist or a technologist or these sorts of things, and look, there are people in those domains who are good value, but often what it is, people just they're grinding a certain ideological axe. and they're smuggling it in under the guise of saying, well, this is how it's all going to be anyway. Well, no, actually, I don't think it is going to be like that. I happen to think humanity is created unique, has a special gift to offer the world. I believe, in fact, the world was a gift to us, Steve, and we can take care of it wisely. And so it's all these sorts of big ideas, as we said, that are actually going to guide us in many ways. These brand new questions, I think, have ancient answers, and answers that we've really been discussing for millennia anyway. So that's where a simple understanding of history is going to stand one in good stead as we see these discussions arise.
I think we'll come back and go a little bit deeper on that later, but you've mentioned the word wise. Of course, it's within the title of your book too, and you use it in relation to AI. Now, I've grown up, I'm sure everyone has, hearing the little saying that knowledge tells us a tomato is a fruit, wisdom says you don't put it in fruit salad.
Yeah.
How is wisdom different from simply being technologically capable in relation to a tool like AI?
Well, say you're really technologically capable. What you don't understand, if you have capability without wisdom, is that these technologies, they have a gravitational pull to them, Steve. Some of the research we cite in Wise AI, one study presented in the Harvard Business Review said that AI doesn't reduce work, it intensifies it. Now, that's really interesting because AI is a time-saving technology, right? All the time when I use it, it saves me so much time on individual tasks, but there's a gravitational pull, as I mentioned. And that gravitational pull is towards speed, it's towards pace. So that research presented in the Harvard Business Review said, well, we're saving lots of time on individual tasks, yet consistently across the board, what are we seeing? People are working longer hours, they're working across a broader domain of activities, and they're working at a denser, more jam-packed rate. So they're actually trying to squeeze more into the... So if you're really technologically capable, you're actually going to find yourself on an absolute hiding. Why is that? Because this steed, to use your metaphor, will take off with you on it, and you will not be able to pump the brakes. That's why wisdom is needed. Wisdom about how we use it, when we don't use it. Wisdom about the kind of life we want to live and how we use this technology in service of that, rather than being sort of swept along in the tidal pull.
I remember conversations many years ago in reflecting on the introduction of home appliances, washing machines, etc., and how if you actually stand back, and I guess this is in the realm of the anthropologist, you see that we still stay busy at home, and you're actually using a one-to-one comparison here with the way being technically capable in AI is suggesting the same fruits are going to be harvested.
Oh, of course. And like I said, we see it. And there's study after study. But here's the interesting thing, Steve. These studies only came out relatively recently. Now, you'll know a book takes a long time to write. So me and my friend Daniel C., we met in the same cafe week after week using what we knew about humanity, what I'd seen in education, what he'd seen in professional consulting and leadership, really having our best guess for where this was going. And it was like weeks before the publishing deadline, not a very long time at all. And boom, these two studies came out that said exactly what we had been arguing in the book. So in some ways, I'm thankful. In other ways, I'm not, because you don't like to see people actually spread thin and be tired, wired and stressed, which is what happens if we use AI in what we might call the default path rather than the wise path. But it was a great confirmation that, yes, I think we are actually on the money, and AI is going to leave a bitter taste in people's mouth because they are going to get dragged along, again, unless they use it wisely. With the big caveat being, Steve, you don't use it wisely by accident. It's something you have to intentionally walk yourself into. You won't drift there.
And I am exercising amazing discipline not to go on a tirade about LinkedIn, for example, which has become a cesspool of plastic contributions from people where you see exactly the same ChatGPT formula with one vacuous point expanded into 400 or 500 words of nothingness going around in plastic circles. That is the lazy bit where the brain has said, you know what, my job is to conserve calories. This tool will help me do it. Bang, output done. Forgetting the fact that a human has to read that at the other end.
Yeah, and I guess the big idea being that they often don't. People like yourself and myself see that and we go, no thanks.
Yeah.
I could ask ChatGPT to give me some budget business advice if I wanted to, but I'm not going to do that. I think this is an interesting space where actually personal connection is going to be at an absolute premium. And another note on that, and we talk about this in the book, but it's big in my philosophy. I write on LinkedIn every day. I absolutely love it. And I refuse to use AI. I use AI in a lot of different domains in my life. Why is that? Because when I'm using LinkedIn, right, and I'm making a post, I very much view it that I am not composing a post, I'm composing myself. I'm refining myself. I'm creating my ability to think and wonder and ponder and pray and analyze. And that's going to stand me in good stead in the rest of my life. That's what we call in the book organic intelligence. And organic intelligence actually is what gives you leverage with artificial intelligence, right? You can't automate something you don't understand. You can't get any leverage when you're bringing no capital in the first place. So my ability to write and write by hand and write on pieces of paper, like the one you can see here, my notes for our discussion, that's what stands me in good stead when I do decide to use AI to write. I might be, again, writing a research brief or a report or something similar. That's the important part. I'm composing myself. I'm forming myself. And when we outsource something like a LinkedIn post where we're trying to articulate our thoughts to AI, I fear we may be doing ourselves more harm than good.
I actually go further and say we are. And I have been known cheekily in a down moment, Paul, I'm not proud of this, when I come across that to say, that's what ChatGPT thinks. I would love to know what you think. Because that's what I want. And especially, we're talking LinkedIn, and educators use LinkedIn, but also newsletters within the school, updates, things to parents, etc. I'm thankful enough I've worked with a couple of schools helping them harness AI to sharpen their voice, but only so the parents, the schools at the centre, and it can shoulder some load, but really connect deeply and authentically. This is where we're at, isn't it? And when we do things manually, especially that small act of communication, this is where we get to see, does the person at the other end actually have and is showcasing that organic intelligence, that the outcome of lived experience as a human in this world. How do you think we can protect and strengthen our students' own thinking in this world? Because, as I mentioned before, evolutionary biologists do tell us that brain has been designed, has evolved to use as few calories as possible. That's its mission, to keep us alive. And tools like this is a no-brainer, so to speak, for it.
Yeah.
It's getting that balance right. Have you got some thoughts on that?
100% I have some thoughts, Steve. This is my bread and butter. So I feel like that is an absolute softball you have lobbed at me, and I'm going to try and hit it for 6 here, right? So first thing, we have to train our students to use AI. We have to train them to use AI. Why? Because they already are using it. Right? The evidence is very, very clear. AI is everywhere for them. In fact, they might have no new apps on their phone in the last 4 years, but AI will actually be baked into their Messenger, baked into their WhatsApp, baked into their Snapchat and Instagram. So it's everywhere. They are using it. We can't control that. What we can control in some ways is if they use it well. We can teach them the basic principles and practices of wise AI use and give them some big ideas to think about. We don't have to turn them into computer science PhDs. In fact, I gave a talk to students just the other day, and I said these 2 simple ideas, right? It's not Google and it's not your friend. And if you understand those 2 basic ideas, that'll go a long way to avoiding the pitfalls, right? So that's the first thing. We want to train them to use it. Secondly, Steve, we want to actually control when they use it within our school. Now, as much as I love AI, I have my students on pens and paper 95% of the time. And that's so they might produce some great work. It might be less great, but I know at the end of the lesson, it is their work and it came from their cognitive effort and it is a good reflection of their understanding and their skill. That's crucial. If we have students on unmonitored laptops extensively, we are going to be less and less certain that what we are seeing from them is an accurate representation of their knowledge. And we don't want to break that feedback loop, because if I don't know what they know, I don't know how well I'm teaching. I don't know if I'm actually reaching the vision, mission, values of my school. I actually am flying blind as an educator. So I would say those two things. Let's train them. Let's train them to be great users, and then be really clear about when they can and when they can't use it, and maybe even put some structural barriers in place, like we're going to pen and paper, so that we can actually take that decision out of their hands and say, now we're clearly just using and developing and refining our organic intelligence.
Because it's hard enough being a teenager or primary school age student with all the criticism that comes from your cohort, your own self-criticism, and to have AI promising, I can make everything you write seem smooth and easy and your ideas are coherent-ish. It's instilling that confidence, which it seems that you're doing we are going to write pen and paper. You are going to make some mistakes. That's how we learn. That's how we see where the gaps are.
Managing school communication, student progress, and daily operations can be overwhelming. From tracking student performance to managing staff schedules and keeping parents in the loop, it's easy to get lost in the chaos. But it doesn't have to be. Meet Xuno, a simple, powerful, all-in-one school management solution that brings everything and everyone together in one place. Trusted by over 500,000 staff, parents and students, Xuno adapts to your unique needs, offering seamless integration and exceptional support every step of the way. With Xuno, schools save time, parents stay connected, and students can thrive, creating a stronger and more engaged school community. Ready to transform the way your school operates? Visit xuno.com.au today and experience the power of simplicity.
I want to flip the coin while we're still here from a teacher's perspective. How can they use AI in their role as a teacher to be more productive? And I'm not necessarily refining that just to the classroom either.
Well, here's a big idea for you. And I got to speak about this at TEDx Hobart in 2024. One of my big philosophical frameworks is that we want to use AI to do the basics better, right? We wanted to use it to do the basics better. So many teachers make the mistake of thinking we have to use new tech to do new things, right? So we've got this eye-watering new technology. I guess I have to use it to try and run these elaborate escape rooms or do a virtual reality field trip to the Colosseum or something like this, all this complicated new stuff I haven't done before. But what if it just looks like reducing the length and complexity of a reading I do in class, but instead of that taking 30 minutes, it takes 30 seconds. Or creating some simple sentence stems, right? Those sentence stems help students reflect. They scaffold the writing process, giving them a start that they then finish. Again, it used to take 10 minutes. Now it takes about 10 to 15 seconds to generate them and review. These are the evidence-backed basics. My second book was called Artificial Intelligence, Real Literacy. And it really explored how can we do those evidence-based literacy practices more often for more learners. So often we have unrealistic, look, I am grinding my own axe here because I feel really passionate about this, Steve. But we say to teachers, every teacher is a literacy teacher. We should all be doing evidence-based literacy practices. And your woodwork teacher and your PE teacher and your art teacher, maybe even your history teacher are going, where am I finding the time? Where am I actually? So AI actually makes it possible, Steve, for every teacher to be a literacy teacher, because with a few simple prompts and some basic understanding, we can create those evidence-backed basics, not in hours, but in minutes, and it will benefit our learners. So that's AI for better basics. And that's something I get really excited about.
Are there prompts or resources within the book to seed that thinking for teachers?
Yeah, 100%. Artificial Intelligence, Real Literacy, that book goes through 10 evidence-based practices. It says, what is the practice? What is the evidence behind it? How do we actually use AI to do this? And what else should you think about? I love it. It's really practical. It's tactical. A busy educator will read it in 50 minutes. It's about 120 pages. It's something that I'm really proud of and has proved to be very useful in the classroom.
There seems some overlap here with this. I often overshare on this podcast. I promise this will be the only time. I've got two daughters, 15 and 17. The 15-year-old has pestered me to read philosophy, so she's got Philosophy of the Basics. And on a holiday a couple of weeks ago, we had time, and apart from having conversations in the car about the problems of evil or the problem of evil, existentialism. At dinner, she said, can we have a question to toss around with philosophically? Wow. That's where I turned to, I think it was Perplexity AI, gave it the specifics, and all we wanted was some nice questions that I couldn't have come up with, so I had no home ground advantage, and off we went. Is that an example of using AI to help the teaching, inverted commas, around that table, but without diminishing the human aspect?
Oh, I absolutely love that because, again, what's the vision? Where is it actually taking you? It's taking you deeper into relationship, deeper into community. You're sharing ideas that you perhaps wouldn't have before. And having gained an understanding, oh, here are some questions Perplexity's given me, you'll have those tucked away in your back pocket next time you want to discuss those. So I think that's great. The big idea we talk about often is, where is the AI use pointing, all right? If it speeds us up and we're going faster than ever, it actually is more important than ever that we know which direction we're going in, because if it's really fast, it might take us off course quickly. And so I love where that's pointed. That's pointed, Steve, at relationship. It's pointed at family and connection. So chapeau to you, my friend.
Well, you also touched on Stephen Covey's great insight from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's one thing to be good at climbing a ladder. We need to make sure the ladder is against the right wall. Which is exactly what you're saying, but in a probably pre-internet day. There is a line you use that you said AI is incredibly powerful within the right people.
Yeah.
Now, we've come in close to this, but can we specifically define, what does right person look like in this context?
Sure. So how do I get myself to a place where I can use AI well? That's sort of what I'll address here. And we're thinking a few different things. In the book, we have a 5-step framework. I'll cover 2 of those steps right now. The first one is know your deeper why. Know your deeper why. That's what you're actually aiming at. What do I want here? Because when we get to our deathbeds, Steve, and hopefully that's not for a long time, when we get to our deathbeds, we will not be sad that we weren't busier or more frantic or didn't respond to more emails. Yet that's often how we spend our days, busy, frantic, and responding to administrivia, right? And so that's because we haven't clearly articulated our why. So we need to know, who are we? What are our values and principles that guide us, right? So Mother Teresa, her big principle was never see it. No, it was Mary MacKillop, who I'm thinking of. Her big principle was never see a need without doing something about it, right? Or you think of values like single words that you might use. It was Steve Jobs who talked about simplicity, and that was guiding him in everything he did. Martin Luther King Jr. talked about love, right? That was God. So who are we? What are our values and principles? Would be the first thing. That's knowing your why. Really important. The second thing we do is we talked about acting in alignment with that why, all right? Because if we were to think about concentric rings, right, the innermost circle is our why, and then outside of that we have our values and principles. When we talk about alignment, we're talking about the third layer out, which is habits. So what are my habits around this technology? And we go through some practical habits in the book, but how am I using this artificial intelligence in a way that doesn't erode my organic intelligence? Am I going straight to the tool, or am I sitting and pondering and wondering first? Am I reviewing what it's giving me and being a critical analyzer of this information, or am I just swallowing it all in one go? So we have our habits. And so we've got our why, we've got our vision, our values and principles, habits, and lastly, the tool. Then we get to the tool, right? And if we start with the tool, we'll miss out on the alignment. We won't be clear on our why. We won't have habits that are aligned. So if we can get our deeper why, what is the purpose we are using this tool for? What's the purpose we see behind our whole life? And if we can act in alignment with that and really push that idea out into the corners as we apply it, we are then putting ourselves in the position, Steve, to be the right kind of people to benefit from AI and not just be like crunched up in the gears of the machinery.
So we've got that deeper, grounded vision, which, yes, life today, everything within it is pushing us towards faster, boom, 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 no matter what we're doing. So definitely, I'm with you. Know thyself needs to be in that mix to start with. At the same time, what I've noticed with my use of it, especially in my marketing world, writing things for clients, is because I've got deep domain knowledge, I can tell when it's straying. I can tell when it's wrong, and I can, like a little kitten, grab it by the scruff of the neck, like the mum cat does, and just put it back in track. If the next cohort coming through don't have that grounding in the mundane, I feel we will just live in this realm where AI is just retracting to the mean. It's just drawing everything back to the middle ground, and we do have a grey future, and we're going to miss that ability to have that exciting, unexpected, novel leaps and backward steps and friction, and whatnot. Do you think that goes, because we've already talked about using AI to get the basic stuff out the way quickly, but on one hand, there's value in those understanding the fundamentals of what's being done, which is like the other end of knowing the why and the big picture. It's building up a little bit of time, doing it the slow way.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's the domain-specific knowledge that we talk about in education is so important here because, again, how can you evaluate something? People often talk about evaluating AI as a skill. Evaluating AI is not a skill. It is the collection of your pre-existing knowledge in that area. So if I was to evaluate the AI output, if we're talking about AI's created something like philosophy and AI and theology, and it's given me a research paper, I can evaluate that 100%. If it gave me the detailed schematics of a diesel engine, I am out to lunch, man. I've got no idea because I don't know about engines, right? So what's the big idea there, Steve? The big idea is actually that evaluating AI is not a skill. It's actually drawing on your pre-existing domain-specific knowledge, as you so well articulated, and that's what we have to develop in ourselves, and it's what we have to develop in our learners. You cannot automate meaningfully what you don't understand. And to think into the future here for a second, and you touched on this. I've been thinking about this a lot just over the last 2 days. I think we're going to look out and see not a future, but I think the future is fractaling. I think it's fracturing. I think it's going off in 100 little different directions because we are perhaps more, is isolated the right word? Individualized might be the right word. I've got my phone with my feed and it's different to your feed and your phone. And we're seeing different things. And my gut feeling is there are 100 different futures out there, and some of them are great, and some of them are boring and bland. And we have more agency over the kind of future we are inheriting. It's not like we're all stuck watching the same TV or listening to the same radio anymore. It's not like we all have broadly the same calendar or patterns anymore. So my gut feeling is the ceiling has been lifted in terms of our capacity to flourish as humans, but the floor has also dropped out too. So it's really important that we are navigating this technology wisely so we get the best future for ourselves, our friends and our family, and not sort of cheesing off into that bad dystopian grey future that we really want to avoid.
A couple of footnotes on that with the lifting of the ceiling and the lowering of the floor. So there's more and more options. There's more choice to be made. There is a thing called the paradox of choice. Was it Barry Weiss? He did a lot of research in that and says when we've got too much choice, we end up choosing nothing. And I just read a fantastic book by David Epstein called Inside the Box, which is celebrating restriction and working within restrictions. That's one side of what you just talked about that you triggered some reflections. And the other thing here is Google in the last 4 weeks before we recorded this chat announced now that all their search is going to be AI powered. When it does a search on our behalf, it's now going to be firstly, before sending any results, investigating what it knows about us, the person searching. What's our relationship status? What have we been searching for? Where are we? Etc. So this atomization of all of us, I miss the fact that we don't all gather around the one water cooler and the same things because that gives people bridges to connect. Now, when we all become separate, we become easier for nefarious actors to divide and conquer. Can you just that's not really a question. Is there anything you want to say and reflecting on that before I come back to a couple of solid ones to finish with?
Sure, absolutely, Steve. I think there's going to be an increasing premium on shared experience and humanity. There is no doubt in my mind, much like you've had like a growing organic food industry. I think there's going to be like an organic thought or organic relationship or something that prioritizes real connection between you and between me, in the same space, breathing the same air, listening to the same thing with its own imperfections at the same time, debriefing together afterwards. Embodied, incarnated experiences are going to only become more and more important. And I think that's a natural pushback to a sort of frictionless, shapeless world that we can so easily drift into. And that's really, we talk in the book about paradox, right? And I think there needs to be the holding intention here, right? Because yes, I love embodied, incarnated experiences, right? I'm glad I have a physical copy of my book that I wrote and that I can give my grandma. I'm glad I get to teach in a classroom with real students, breathing the same air, sharing life together. I'm glad. But Steve, I'm also glad I can sit in an office room at Calvin and talk to you on the other side of Australia. I'm also glad for that. That's where we hold both intention. And I think going too far on one side or the other, we actually start missing some of the benefits.
Just one correction, not the other side of Australia, the centre of Australia, Adelaide.
Fair enough.
Here's a last question for you. There's a lot of talk out there about what the future has in store in relation to AI and its use or lack of use. How should schools or can schools help young people filter the noise, test the claims, and stay grounded as we go into new territory together as a species?
That's a great question. Let me give you something. Steve. I call this Matthews' Law. Matthews' Law. Now, I actually named it after my dad, not myself. My dad is Simon Matthews, but Simon's Law is like a historic sexual abuse law in the UK. So I didn't want to name that after him. You know what I mean? That's too ambiguous. Matthews' Law is simply this. If your AI change isn't so Matthew's Law is this. Let me just get it straight in my head, because I wrote a Substack piece on this the other day, so I should have it front of mind.
So this
Here we
is
go.
Matthew chapter 1, verse 1, yes?
That's right. If your AI change isn't intentional, it's accidental, right? If your AI change isn't intentional, it's accidental. What I mean by that is this. Everyone's changing. There is no doubt in my mind, right? It is like the shifting of the ground underneath our feet. It's happening faster than we can imagine. And a lot of schools are going, oh, we're not going to worry about AI change. Right? We're not going to invest in that. We've got other things to invest in. And what that means, it's not that they have no AI change, Steve. It's that they have only accidental AI change. And that is one surefire way to get the worst. So what every school needs to be doing is thinking, how do we lead our students, teachers and school communities wisely through this change? How do we actually navigate this in a way that calls out some of the possibilities and steers clear of the problems? How are we going to do this wisely, in community, in alignment with who we are, and taking good care of those in our charge? Simply having that conversation is a confident step in the right direction. So that would be my encouragement to schools. You might think that you are not changing, or that you're not ready to change yet, or you don't have the right resources. I would simply say to you, all you have then is accidental change. And my encouragement to you would be to pursue intentional change.
Matthew's Law sits right next to David Epstein in that book, Inside the Box. He said, if you're not engineering your time in this age, it will be engineered for you.
Oof, I really like that.
Now, where can people get a copy of Wise AI? Because I want to get one too. Is it in all the usual places, or do you have to hand it to us or to your grandma and then she passes it on to us?
Well, you can be waiting a while to get it then. She likes to hold on to things, my grandma, so I don't think she get it. Look, Steve, if you go to amazon.com.au and look up Wise AI, it is right there. Of course, there's also a link on my LinkedIn page as well. I spend probably an unrighteous amount of time on LinkedIn. So if you send me a message about it, if you want to get like a bulk order for your school or your leadership team, I'll respond probably unhealthily quickly.
Paul Matthews, I'm sorry I wasn't a harder interviewer, but I love what you're saying, and I couldn't just come up with being a fake grouch for the sake of pushback. Paul Matthews, thank you for joining me around the school table.
It's been a pleasure.